Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3TR, here to give you another episode of People's Questions, or answer all the questions that have been sent to me over the past week. Sadly for this particular episode... Sadly for this particular episode, it's actually going to end up being probably one of the shortest question-wise, because despite having well over 50 comments in the last episode, I can only pick out about 5 questions. There's only like 5 questions that I thought were at least good enough to be answered in an official video. I mean, it was just a wide mixture of questions I refused to answer because they involve certain topics I don't like to talk about. Someone in particular actually answering a number of the questions for me because they've been watching for so long. So for who you are, thanks for that, because it saves me a lot of time. And a lot of debates that weren't even questions. It was really weird in the comment section, so I could only pick out 5, and to be honest, they're kind of like okay, I guess. So let's start off with the first question, coming from Phantom Sidious. You want to know, in my opinion, what makes the DC animated universe so successful and superior to the live action movies based on the characters? I think because animated movies are a lot more simpler to make than live action. They're a lot cheaper to make. You don't really need to worry about act performances. You just need to worry about voice acting performances. And I think the stories are much more simpler to make. I mean, I can't remember the last time you had like an animated film that was like 2 hours or like 2 hour plus hours long. They usually tell very, very simple stories involving characters that we already know, and I think that's a major plus. So I think that's why, in my opinion, the animated DC films have always at least been more consistently good than what we've been getting from the live action films. But that's just my thought. Next question comes from All-Star Gamerpunk, and you want to know, what do I think of Nintendo Switch? Now, this is one of the interesting ones, because honestly, I don't have much of an opinion on the Switch because I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I'm confused. I don't know what the Switch is, because I'll tell you this much. It's not, from pictures I've seen of it, because I don't think I've ever actually seen a Switch up close. I think I've seen 2 from a distance, and I'm just the kind of person who thinks that Nintendo platforms should be for children. I think once you grow up, you should move to either Xbox or PlayStation. But the hell, that's just me. Because the last Nintendo console I ever had was a Nintendo 64. This is, in my opinion, the last great Nintendo console. And it came out over 20 years ago. And it's too small to be a console, yet it's too big to be a portable. Because from pictures I've seen of it, you can't fit it in your pocket. So I don't know what the Switch is. So I don't know what to think about it. I mean, I would say like the newest console I ever owned that was a Nintendo console was the Wii. But as I'm sure I think I've stated this in the past, I only bought the Wii to play only one specific game. Only to find out that 6 months after I bought my Wii for that game, the game was going to be released on the PlayStation 3. And so I immediately just gave that Wii to some kid I knew in the neighborhood, and I never thought about it afterwards. I was like, I don't need this Wii anymore. I've just outgrown any sort of passion for Nintendo, I guess. So I'm not sure what to think about it, because I don't know what this Switch is. It doesn't feel like a console or portable. It's like some weird hybrid, and I don't know what games are on there. I don't know anyone who has one. So I'm confused. This is the most confusing piece of technology I've ever seen, because I don't know what it is. It looks like it's just some weird Frankenstein thing. So yeah, I don't really know what to say about the Switch, because I don't know what it is. I'm sorry. Next question comes from the Paper Knight. You want to know, out of the entire world, which certain monumental attractive place would I like to go see? I guess Japan. I'd like to go visit Akihabara, obviously for its, geek and gamer, culture there. That seems like a pretty nice place to visit at least once. I recently watched a couple of videos about certain things that they do in Japan. It has me a little bit concerned. So it's like one of those places that, like, if I ever decide to go there, I would need to take at least one or two people with me. But to be honest, I would say like the second place I would like to go would be Great Britain, because I was born there, and so I think it'd be an interesting trip to actually go visit the country I was originally born in. Now that's a trip I could absolutely go myself and probably get around pretty easily. So I would say those are like the two main places. So it's Great Britain if I'm forced to go by myself, but Japan if I could bring like one or two people with me, because I'm not going over there by myself. Next question comes from Silver Leonhardt 2099. You want to know, here's your question: if Squall had the same Nova cells as Cloud did, how would he fare against Sephiroth? Oh dear God. If he had, okay, put it like this: if Squall had the same de novo cells, he would absolutely dominate someone like Cloud easily. But how would he fare against Sephiroth? To be honest, that would be a very, very good fight. Because I think skill-wise and experience-wise and training-wise, Squall is definitely much more suited to deal with someone like Sephiroth. And when it comes to, put it like this, one-on-one, Squall would be able to put up a much better fight against Sephiroth. And I think he would probably be able to push him to the point where he would actually force, or at least push Sephiroth and start using some of his magic, which Sephiroth doesn't usually do. I still think that Squall would lose, because once he doesn't compare to him in terms of his magical potential. But to be able to push Sephiroth to that point, I think would be very, very impressive. But yeah, he would still lose. But he would probably be on par with someone like, say, Advent Children Cloud in terms of how much of a challenge he could present to someone like Sephiroth. It would be pretty impressive to see. And the last question of the episode comes from Venom Rules All, and you want to know, any Final Fantasy characters I feel are underrated and why? Underrated. Underrated. That's a tough one. Underrated. I don't know. Maybe Barrett, I guess, from Final Fantasy VII is underrated, because I think he's a pretty cool looking character. I mean, the guy's got like a Mr. T mohawk and a Gatling gun for a hand. I mean, that's pretty cool. I'm trying to think of like the Final Fantasy games that I'm a fan of, but when I think of those actual cast of characters, I don't think that most of them are underrated. I think they're given just as much attention as I think they deserve. I think if I had to think about Final Fantasy games that I'm not too familiar with, I might have a better chance of figuring out who I think is underrated. But I guess the closest one I can think of is probably Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. And with that ends this episode of People's Questions. If you guys have any more questions that you would like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. Try to make them a little bit interesting, because I'd like to answer more questions, but I don't know. I guess it's hard to kind of dictate exactly what type of questions will make it into the next video or not. But if you do have a question, just make sure you get it into me before next Wednesday, before I start filming the next episode. And yeah, that's about everything I got to say. So thank you guys for watching, and yeah, I guess I'll see you next time.